I'll call this meeting to order. Our council meeting, number 3 for Tuesday the 16th. First, recognize that we meet on the traditional territory of the LHTAKO DENE Nation. And we'll look for an approval of the agenda. There is an item on the agenda that we might, I'll ask Councillor Runge, is the report in, or are we going to defer that to the next meeting? So we'll have one deferment of a PABCOM report. And our Director of Finance, Director Bolton, is caught up in traffic. There's been a horrific accident on the bridge, and the traffic is backed up for miles and miles. So we're going to try and push her reports to the back end as far as we can. And if we get to those items, when that time comes, the city manager will do his best to field questions. And then ultimately, if we feel that the need arises, we'll defer items to the next council meeting. I think that's all fair to say. Having said all of that, I'm looking for an adoption of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Runge, seconded by Tony Goulet. Councillor Goulet. Any questions, concerns? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Minutes from the meeting of December the 5th. Any concerns, errors, or omissions? Seeing none, I need a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting. Councillor Rudenberg, second. Councillor McKelvey. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And first up, we have a delegation tonight from BC Housing. And thanks for hanging in there, guys, and I do really appreciate your patience tonight. And we look forward to chatting with you. And tonight on Zoom, we have Samuel Hogue, Jennifer Boone, Kirsten Bailey. I hope I've said that correctly. Bailey, yeah. Thanks, Kirsten. And basically, we won't belabor it. We'll let you get right into it. Thank you for coming tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. So let me know if this all goes well. Okay. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm going to go with yes. Okay. So first of all, thank you so much for having us, letting us come to your council tonight. I wanted to, why we're here really is to talk about how we can together really help build a thriving community in Quesnel and address a range of housing needs in Quesnel. Most specifically, we want to talk about 530 Carson Avenue and the rezoning. Shoot, just one sec. I'd also like to acknowledge that BC Housing conducts its land and its work on a variety of First Nations lands. Tonight, as you mentioned, we're gathered together on the LHTAKO DENE First Nations, and we're so happy to be working on these lands today. In terms of what I'd like to cover off in the presentation tonight is really to go over the purpose of the presentation, talk a little bit about housing and the ecosystem of housing and homelessness in Quesnel, talk a little bit about BC Housing's Supportive Housing Fund, Bridges as the supportive housing in operation in Quesnel, and then really talk briefly about 530 Carson Avenue and some of the ideas for a potential redevelopment of this site. Some timelines and allow enough time for some questions. In terms of the purpose of tonight, we're requesting a first reading to rezone 530 Carson Avenue to create a site-specific use in the C3 zone. This will allow supportive housing on the site. This is important to BC Housing because currently BC Housing leases units in the site, but we would be interested in creating permanent supportive housing at 530 Carson Avenue. In addition, BC Housing would like to work with the City of Quesnel, the Housing Solutions Table, local neighbors, and the business community to explore a phased redevelopment of this site to provide a range of supportive and affordable housing options. As I mentioned, housing really is a variety of different types of housing and different levels of affordability. On the left-hand side, there's different housing types that are aimed at addressing homelessness, housing with support services, and you move to the middle of the continuum to look at a variety of affordable rental housing options and then progress along. And I think it's important to note that complete communities have a variety of housing within their mix, a variety of housing in built form and a variety of housing in terms of affordability. And BC Housing, in conjunction with some amazing nonprofit organizations in Quesnel, have been working to deliver a variety of housing. We work on delivering Indigenous housing, so housing focused just on the needs of our Indigenous communities. Housing aimed targeted for women and children fleeing violence, in addition to a range of supported and affordable housing options in Quesnel. I won't go through them all, but the importance to have that depth and breadth of housing is important in a community. In terms of homelessness in Quesnel, the research is finding in 2023, 127 people were identified as experiencing homelessness. This is up from the value seen in 2020. 57% of individuals, homeless individuals, identified as male and 40% as female. Of the homeless individuals, 59% identified as Indigenous, with the majority of respondents having experienced generational trauma from the residential school system. These are Quesnel residents, with 90% of respondents have been from the community of Quesnel for more than 1 year, and 77% having lived in Quesnel for over 5 years. So we are seeing a vulnerable homeless population in Quesnel that we would like to see housed. BC Housing has a variety of different funding programs. BC Housing's Supportive Housing Fund is the fund that we are looking at now to be able to provide permanent, purpose-built supportive housing. This fund comes with capital dollars. It comes with capital dollars to both purchase the land and actually build the building. In addition to that, it comes with ongoing operational dollars. These operational dollars fund the staffing, fund the meals, fund building operations and building maintenance. So it really is a fund that provides the complete package in terms of land, building, and operations. Now, while BC Housing comes with the funding, we cannot do this alone. We all know the complexity of homelessness and housing, and BC Housing works with our local municipalities, health authorities, First Nations, Indigenous service providers, and local nonprofits to make these projects work and come to life. I'm going to turn it over to David, who can speak a little bit about what supportive housing is and how it operates in communities.
Thanks, Carson. Good evening, Council. My name's David Shea. We've met. I'm the nonprofit portfolio manager in the area and with Quesnel in particular. So supportive housing, we've talked about this before a bit, but this slide really sort of shows the kinds of programming that happens here. There's each unit is a self-contained suite with a kitchenette. There will be a kitchen on site and meals will be provided. And then staff, there'll be two 24/7 staff on to keep the building safe and to connect with residents, and then all manner of referrals that can happen to services and supports throughout the community that assist the individual with living their life in a more organized way. We use a housing first model. So housing first says that we will provide a home, that the people that we're dealing with, that we're all sort of struggling with, working with, are homeless. They don't have a place where they can concentrate on their lives and pay attention. So the belief is that once we can address that basic life need of a shelter and a place to be warm, then people can start to look at the next steps in their lives. So what we're really trying to do is address those basic Maslowian needs around shelter, food, and just a place where they live. Our hope is that once they have those things in place, that they can start to imagine a different kind of life and start to address safety concerns with respect to their health or with respect to their relationships. But our first goal here is to provide people a home and to get them into a warm place where they feel like they belong. There is an economic benefit to what we're doing. It's an expensive venture that we propose, but the research that we have says that we're looking at saving sort of nearly $20,000 per person by putting them into a home and paying for that home, as opposed to the way it operates now, where people are randomly accessing typically emergency services. And there's a stat here that says that if people that are living in supportive housing are accessing ambulance services 2/3 less than they were before, and that they're accessing hospital services half the time that they might have. And those are two examples of how this kind of programming can reduce the tax on the services and increase people's stability. So Bridges, as you know, and I'm sure many of you have been there, excuse me, but Bridges were opened in 2020, so we're coming up to about 3 years of operation there. There's 32 units. 6 of those units are funded by the Health Authority, providing particular services and supports to people that are in health need. This was a $6.5 million build with an annual budget of over $1 million. But going back to that earlier slide, what we find and what we believe is that this kind of an investment supports a community and supports the individuals and helps them find a life where they can be contributors and where they can feel like they belong. And when I was with you last month or so, you know, I had recently been over to Bridges and had a bit of a tour, and they talked exactly about these kinds of things, you know, relationships that they have with the pharmacy, an ability for people to maintain their drug supply, their prescriptions, I mean, and because oftentimes people don't have access to all those services, pharmacies and such, so we're able to provide supports and networks and connections that help people get those needs met. This is a slide here of just some of the activities that happens and just indicators of the sort of relationship building that happens and the sense of belonging. So, but the little bubbles there on the side are really difficult to read, but there's a couple that I can make out, and they're moving. They say, Bridges saved my life, and Bridges is my home, and Bridges is a blessing. And these are the kinds of experiences that we're seeing. Once people get settled, they really, truly feel like they belong, and they speak about drastic change and sense of belonging. And so we feel that this is the kind of program that we really want to pursue, and we're excited to be part of it because we see it making a difference. And then just one last slide, Ben, it's just another photo of the foyer area and the common room. It gives you a sense again of what the building looks like, that it's an open, airy, professional, comfortable place where people feel like they belong, and a place where they use and a place where they can live in community. And I'll pass that back to Kirsten now. Thank you.
Thanks, David. So that's kind of how our supportive housing works. And what we're looking at for 530 Carson Avenue is currently we're leasing 20 units in the Grace Inn. We are requesting to amend or rezone the existing 3C3 zone to permit supportive housing on the site. The existing residents in the Grace Inn will remain, but there will be additional supports, and that will continue until a redevelopment plan is created. I think it's important to note that PC Housing has this property under contract for purchase, but we cannot close on this property. We can't actually purchase the property until the site is zoned appropriately. And that's because we would be using our supportive housing dollars to purchase and redevelop, and we can't purchase a site that doesn't permit permanent supportive housing. So that's sort of the need for the timing of this rezoning. So this is obviously images of what Grace Inn looks like. And then I think the exciting part in all of this is really ideas for moving forward. And BC Housing would be looking to work with the city, work with your housing solution table, neighbors and business community to really envision what a redevelopment could look like. We would be aiming to meet Quesnel's official community plan and policy objectives. We would be aiming to provide a range of affordable housing options on this site. And we would be looking to provide permanent, purpose-built supportive housing units on this site. I want to make it clear we have not started this work now. We have not hired any of the architects or anybody to start this work. It's just we need to get through the rezoning and purchasing of the land to really be able to advance this idea any further. So we come with no plans, and we would, other than asking to sort of work with the community to build this. In terms of timelines, we're focused on the rezoning process at this time, with January 16th tonight being a first reading. BC Housing will be hosting a community dialogue session to discuss Grayson and the rezoning on January 23rd. And we're hoping for a second reading on February 6th, and then a public hearing, and then a third reading February 20th. We need to progress through this process in order for us to be able to meet the subjects of our purchase and sale agreement in time for completion. So that's it for our presentation. David, myself, and Sam are here to answer any questions or open for discussion.
Thank you, Kirsten. I was remiss to discuss this with Director Turner before the meeting. Because we've got you as a captive audience right now, Kirsten, your team, I'm going to move Tanya's report on the zoning amendment to our next item. If your team would like to stay online there, would you be okay with that? We can still take your questions now if council would like, but I think we're going to move into Director Turner's report, and we could do questions and answers at that time as well.
Sure.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
So I'll leave it. Council, you have any questions immediately, or should we move into Director Turner's report? No questions, so we're going to move right into item K1. So for everyone's information, that's page 20, page 20 on the agenda. And Director Turner, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This I was going to be very brief, as we've gone through quite a bit of what's intended here through BC Housing, and I thank them for their presentation. This report is really a consideration of the first reading to amend Lot A, Block 42, Town of Quesnel Plan, EPP 79910, to allow the use of supportive housing. This is going to be a spot zone to just place supportive housing on this site. And I did talk to the city manager, and we do want to confirm that as well. This is not for shelter use. That sometimes gets mixed up. This is supportive housing alone at this time. The only thing I really want to bring to council's attention, we've talked about this before, there's a lot of policy in our OCP that really does support proceeding on additional residential housing, affordable housing, and working with our partners in providing this housing. I've listed a number of policies there for that. The BC Housing has been proactive and has started consultation already, sending out letters, have a number of engagements with different groups in the community, property owners and business owners, in order to make sure that they're having full conversations with the community. This includes the BIA, the Senior Center, and a couple of other businesses in the area to inquire whether they want to have a conversation on this. I've listed quite a bit of the process in terms of where we're going next in the process section. This includes some consultation activities that council and the community really should take note of, and we will make sure that we get those out clearly in our recording to the public on this plan following this meeting, to make sure they're advised of the opportunities to have input. I'm really going to just go straight into the recommendation, which is that council provides first reading to zoning amendment bylaw number 1956, and that council sets the public hearing for Tuesday, February 20th at 5:30 in council chambers at 410 Kinchin Street.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Councillor Rudenberg. So that's on the floor. Questions? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all from BC Housing for all your hard work. As I hope everybody in the community knows, there's just a massive need to be helping people out there. The area is being used right now, but with this kind of investment, I think that the bonuses for our community are just absolutely exceptional. I want to thank BC Housing, because when we had conversations before, we were really hoping to get the community engagement, get the message out there, and fortunately this time we've had that amount of time to do it, and it's taking place. I really think that this is a wonderful thing, and thank you very much, and I hope we can get support and see this to fruition.
No other speakers? And I'll just concur with Councillor Elliott. Process is fantastic, lots of lead time, great for consultation. The property in question definitely needs some investment, and I think this sounds like the beginnings of a good partnership. So on that note, any other questions? I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. No questions for BC Housing. So thank you, guys. Much appreciated you hanging in there. Sorry for the late start, and we will be talking soon. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, we'll get back on track here and move into committee reports. And I think I'm up first. Okay, so I'm delivering a report first from our December 13th Financial Sustainability and Audit Committee from December 13th. The first big item is our capital budget, which we're really hoping Director Bolton's going to sneak in here in the next few minutes, but I'll leave that discussion for when she arrives. So that was the big one. We did talk subsequently about a legislative/community support budget. The committee reviewed the first draft of the support budget, and discussions included a proposal that council travel funds revert back to a set amount each year for each member of council. Individual councillors can then, at their prerogative, decide what events and conferences they wish to attend. The amount proposed was $7,000. And basically, I guess the motivation behind this is that a set budget simplifies the process for a councillor's ability to decide what conferences they want to go to. Currently, the way it works is staff query councillors on where they want to go or what conferences they'd like to attend. And often, councillors don't know what their itinerary or their availability will be. So it's difficult to look into that crystal ball. So by having a budgeted amount, there's a little more flexibility for council members to make those decisions not on the spot, and also it simplifies staff time and less chasing, shall we say. The committee also discussed the request from the North Cariboo Seniors Council for ongoing financial support beyond 2023. The group had received 3 years of funding from the city's COVID Safe Restart Grant, which amounted to $33,000 per year from that grant. The committee proposed allocating the North Cariboo Seniors Council $20,000 in each budget year until 2026. Although this contribution falls short of the request, it is hoped that difference can be made up with financial participation from the Cariboo Regional District and other partners. And the North Cariboo Seniors Council, we must be reminded, serves seniors not in just the city, but they serve seniors throughout the region. The intent would be to have the NCSC contribution timetable match the terms of other nonprofit groups that do receive funds from council. When a new term of council convenes, that council will have an opportunity to review those commitments to nonprofit groups early on in their term. All these changes will be built into the operating budget, which is coming to council for review in February. We talked briefly about the budget survey results. In terms of participation, it was similar as last year. The summary of the exact results will be brought to council when we begin our operating budget discussions in February. The Council Initiatives Fund. The committee discussed potentially reducing the amount taxed for council initiatives in 2024 due to the unallocated sum currently in the Council Initiatives Fund, which is currently about $100,000. Typically, the allocation to council initiatives is $75,000 per year, but for next year, the next fiscal, we're proposing only to allocate $25,000. And I guess the motivation around this is there's quite a bit in the fund, so that the top-up amount doesn't need to be as it has been. And then last but not least, the interconnector lobbying plan. City Council continues to place a high priority on the interconnector project. To that end, a renewed effort must be invested to getting this project back into the provincial queue. A lobbying effort involving renewed engagement of other northern communities, our own residents, and the decision makers within the provincial government will be undertaken. The immediate goal would be to move this project to the next phase, which is functional design of the interconnector. And that is a recommendation which will come later. Actually, we'll make it right now. I will make the recommendation to adopt the interconnector lobbying plan. Seconded by Councillor Elliott. Comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, my comment is this, we've just had a horrific accident tonight on the bridge where the interconnector would be built. And they're still working on it. The traffic is backed up in all directions for many kilometers. This is extremely important, and the province has to understand that. My question would go to City Manager. Because of the situation tonight, have we reached out to emergency services? Have we reached out to the chief and potentially the hospital or the RCMP? Like, if this is just proving, if this closes down our one way in and out because Johnson Bridge is closed at the same time, we're in a lot of trouble. So I think we can add even more. Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
I'm not sure if there was a question in there somewhere, but our lobbying effort will definitely include emergency services. And in fact, in the long run, that is one of the most important parts of the interconnector project is from an emergency management perspective, right? It's not just about inconvenience, it's about safety is a very large part of it.
And I will finish it off by saying I was in a car accident on the way down here, just a fender bender, but yeah, not quite there, I don't think.
Any other questions on, I guess, the motion? Sorry, I should have read that motion out more clearly. That the Finance and Sustainability Committee recommend to Council that up to $12,000 from Council Initiative Fund be used for the lobbying plan for the interconnector. So. Another question from, no? Okay. So any questions on this or the report at large? No? All in favor for the recommendation? Opposed? Carried. Okay, number 2. So this finance report is from January the 3rd. I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking already here. So first topic we discussed was the Climate Action Initiative. The Senior Community Development Coordinator discussed with the committee possible uses of the Local Government Climate Action Program grant, of which the city receives each year, and we actually have some money in that fund. Possible projects include building a GHG emissions inventory, mitigation plan, community EV charging, and an update to the city's climate action plan. And as it happens, that staff report is coming tonight. 2024 assessments. We received the committee received the completed assessments from BC Assessment. The average residential property was up 2.6%. Overall assessments are up 3.5%. And these are, of course, integral in use for our budgeting process. The Finance Department is busy doing year-end. So they're hoping to have a surplus report to FSAC by the end of March. Supplemental requests. The committee reviewed the first draft supplementals for 2024 and the potential tax increase. Discussions will be ongoing over the next few months with much work to be done. Early on, possible changes include funding the museum archival intern from the museum archival reserve and risk managing the RCMP FTE count by an additional member. Although the city has budgeted for 23 members, the detachment has averaged 22 or fewer over the last 5 years. This variance can be attributed to recruitment challenges, retention challenges, as well as various leaves of absence. And there are no recommendations from that report. And so we're going to move on. And that would bring us to, I believe, J1, which is Caribou Regional District Board highlights, and Councillor Rudenberg to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. So these highlights are from December 8th of the Caribou Regional District Board meeting. As you can see, there's always lots that goes on during these meetings. I'll highlight just a few pieces. New communication strategy that they're continuing to improve on. They're looking at expanding the use of non-digital tactics. They'll still keep using their well-established digital communications channels, but they'd like to see other tactics used. I'm going to jump down to the CRD. They have been making use of the Northern Development Improvement Trust Business Facade Improvement Program. And over the past number of years, they've had over 32 businesses in the regional district that have been funded through the Facade Improvement Plan. And I'll jump down to the last piece that I think is important for us as a community, because we've had lots of discussion around it, is in regards to the Solid Waste Management Plan. The Board of Directors authorized the new Solid Waste Management Plan to be referred to the Ministry of Environment for approval. And part of the plan aims to reduce the amount of landfill waste by 100 kilograms per resident. And there's lots of stuff online, so please take an opportunity to go and visit the CRD website and check out some of their plans and how you can do your part in reducing our landfill waste. There we go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions for Councillor Rudenberg? Seeing none, moving on. So we've done K1. We're moving on to K2. So that's page 28 of your agenda. Quesnel Fire Department incident calls. Director Richard to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this report obviously is to provide Council and Mayor just the incident calls we had for 2023. So we were dispatched to a total of 743 calls compared to the 724 in 2022. This is the highest calls ever recorded. A total of 4,173 firefighter hours were recorded in that year. The incident call types that contributed most to the 2023 increased numbers were burning complaints, which was campfires, dumpster fires, confirmed false alarms, that's both residential and commercial, natural gas hazmat call incidents, motor vehicle accidents, and residential structure fire calls. A detailed list is attached. So basically our burning complaints increased from 66 calls in 2022 to 99. That's illegal campfires throughout our community. Most of those are tended by our on-call duty officer, and they don't go to a full group page. We had an increase in dumpster fires, false alarms, hazmat natural gas calls increased. We had a couple bomb threats in 2023. We did have an increase in emergency lift assist with BC Ambulance, but on a good note, the medical aid incidents dropped from 194 in 2022 to 128. So we had quite a reduction there. Minor motor vehicle accidents did increase from 18 to 26, and our serious motor vehicle accidents did increase from 36 to 43. Commercial industrial structure fires, which is mill fires, we had quite a reduction there from 7 to 2, but our residential outbuilding structure fires increased from 17 to 24. So, any questions at this time?
Thanks, Chief. Any questions for Chief? Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you're up again, sir.
I am. All right, this report is just an overview of the Quesnel Fire Department 2023 wildfire deployment. Basically, the Quesnel Fire Department was involved with 4 separate wildfire deployments in 2023, totaling 33 days and over 430 working hours. The first deployment request came from BC Wildfire on June the 7th, and the Quesnel Fire Department was dispatched to Tumber Ridge with 2 people in our water tender. They were there from the June 8th to the 13th, and then they were redeployed to the Donnie Creek Fire near Fort St. John from June 14th to the 23rd. In August, we were involved with the deployment of our fire engine with 4 firefighters to the Karamias Fire, and crews were deployed from August 16th to the 26th. And on August 18th, BC Wildfire again requested our water tender to the West Kelowna Fire. We had 2 members on our water crew truck deployed from August 18th to the 23rd. So basically, total revenue for the 2023 wildfire deployment season was just over $200,000. Wages, obviously, we have to deduct wages and diesel costs off of that, and any revenue was actually put into the fire department capital reserve. So, any questions?
No questions? I got a question there, Chief. So the total revenue was $200,800. So what was the approximate cost to your department there?
So wages would have been just about approximately $22,000, and diesel costs would have been $5,000. So that deduction comes off of that. So we're about $175,000. So I didn't do a report in 2022, but we also had deployment. We had 2 deployments back then also with some revenue.
Well, it's fantastic that we can give aid when we can, but it's also a nice silver lining that there's a little extra revenue coming into the city, so that's great. No other questions? Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
And now we're moving on to Administrative Report 36, Northern Development Initiative Trust, Northern Housing Initiative Grant. Manager Reid.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to get Council's approval to apply for the NDIT Northern Housing Incentive. This program provides grant funding to local governments to create a dollars-to-door incentive program for market housing developments, multifamily housing developments, and it's for $10,000 per door up to $200,000. This could be applied for the application for the 57-unit apartment on Kinchin Street. The recommendation is that Quesnel City Council supports an application for $200,000 to the Northern Development Initiative Trust Northern Housing Incentive Program.
Councillor Runge moving, second. Councillor Rudenberg. Any questions? No questions. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next is Administrative Report 26, Bylaw 1955, City of Quesnel, West Quesnel Business Improvement Area Bylaw. And Councillor Rudenberg will recuse herself. And this is for first and second readings.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. I'm going to take this over from Carrie, who's still stuck in traffic somewhere. Hopefully speeding here, but we don't know about that. So the purpose of this report is to request council to proceed with the first 2 readings of the West Quesnel Business Improvement Area Bylaw. Of course, we've already heard the presentation from the Business Improvement Area Executive. This bylaw is subject to council initiatives bylaws, or this bylaw is a council initiatives bylaw subject to petition against. So what that means is a petition against is once council has given the first couple readings of the bylaw, we send out notifications to everyone in that area who is part of this business classification and part of that geographic area. We send them a copy of the presentation and we say, here's the plan. Are you happy with proceeding with it? And then we respond to people who respond in the negative that they don't want to proceed with it. So the West Quesnel BIA bylaw expired in 2023, and they are requesting a 5-year extension. I talked about the process already. So the recommendation is that council proceed with the first 2 readings of the City of Quesnel, West Quesnel Business Improvement Area Bylaw 1955 of 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Councillor Goulet to move. Councillor Runge second. Any questions for the City Manager on this one? No. Was there any feedback there, City Manager, from business community?
Oh, I'm sorry, I probably didn't make myself clear. We will send that out after this process, it gets sent out, and then we'll report back that finding to council.
Fair enough, thank you. Okay, any further questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. Councillor Rudenberg can come on back. And now we're going to move to Administration Report 30, Local Government Climate Action Program Expenses, Senior Coordinator Blair to report. But I don't see Senior Coordinator Blair.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. I'll be taking this report for Senior Community Development Coordinator as well. She has got traffic problems as well. So the purpose of this report is to provide options and cost estimates for the climate action initiatives which meet the local government climate action plan conditions for funding. So as council is, I'm sure, aware, we get annual funding under this program, the LGCAP. So the point of this is to use these funds, and we're putting this forward in front of council to get approval on this use of funds. So in 2024, the city will receive $107,000 from LGCAP. Our goal is to leverage this fund through grant applications and preparing plans for future projects to help to really leverage that funding and result in a lot more dollars for good, worthy projects would help with climate action program. So we did bring this report to FSAC on January 4th, talked about the following projects, and reviewed these, and FSAC actually approved these projects and approved sending this to council for review. So first, building a greenhouse gas and emissions inventory and mitigation plan. Federation of Canadian Municipalities and the Green Municipal Fund will fund up to 80% for the plan, up to $65,000 per community building, or up to $200,000 for a portfolio of community buildings, including data collection and a mitigation plan. So the point of this plan is to really collect an inventory on all city buildings about what are the components of that building? How do we improve the performance of that building from a climate change perspective? And then really, when the grants become available to do that, we've got the evidence here of here's where we need to spend our money, and it's backed up by this study. So this is one of the ones what could result in some significant grant funding come into the city for our city facilities. Community EV charging plan. So what the plan to do here is to do a gap analysis of EV charging infrastructure in the community. So, and it's important, what we're not proposing that the city engages in building a bunch of EV charging stations. That's not the intent. The intent is we feel, given the provincial and federal determination to bring us to full EVs by 2035, that there's going to be a lot of money spent on EV charging infrastructure, because particularly in the north, it's woefully inadequate. There is not nearly enough. So what we're hoping is that we can do a gap analysis and we can say, potentially, if we want to encourage economic development, for example, we could have more charging stations close to our downtown where people can park their car, get out and shop, and hopefully develop a package so that it's not just about people charging their cars and scooting on through the city, finding a convenient place outside the city or on our outskirts, charging their cars and driving through, but somewhere close to our downtown and other shopping areas where they can really benefit the community. So that is the goal with the charging, or one of the goals with this charging plan. Also, there will be public engagement, strategy development, and options for providing incentives, and policy options if needed, and public education around this. So a lot to be done with that little project, but that's the intent behind that one. Incentivize use of active transportation. So we started this year, but the intent will be to continue it in 2024 and beyond. And that's incentivize that through marketing, contests, websites, and Let's Connect updates, and Go by Bike Week, with the goal is just to put it in front of everyone's face and get more participation. There's also a small contribution from this grant to the Senior Community Development Coordinator salary. That's to help set some of the offset costs, because we didn't have that position a few years ago. So as this funding came open, it helps to fund that position. And it's not a one full-time FTE. It's part of what the Community Development Coordinator does in her regular job. And finally, a climate action plan update. Our old one's getting old. It's about time to update that, and we'll be looking for grant funding to help to do that. And this funding that we're asking for is a small amount, which we'll be looking for other grant funding to do the work. Sorry, that wasn't quite as clear as Lindsay would have presented it all. But the recommendation is that council approves the spending of up to $50,000 for the building, greenhouse gas and emissions inventory and mitigation plan, up to $50,000 for the community EV charging plan, up to $10,000 for the senior community development coordinator, and $2,500 to incentivize the use of active transportation from the LG cap reserve. So, and again, I just want to say at the end of that, that is all funded money. That is not tax. That's not taxpayer money. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Someone to move that recommendation? Councillor Runge, you moving? Second? Councillor Elliott? Questions?
So I guess this question is the city manager. So because our revenue is 107,000, I'm a quick little guess at around the $200,000 mark. Should we not get some of these grants? Does the reserve have enough to cover all of this?
If we don't get the grants to do some of these projects, some of them won't be done. We'll then look at the ones we get grants to do, and the other ones we'll keep applying for funding until we find that. Or we'll cut down on the plans to match the actual funding that we have.
Yeah, thank you. So as long as I have no problem spending the 107,000, the other portion I'm just worried about all the other pushes on our budget. And I do, when I look at some of these things, and I think I've said this before, if there's any chance that we can somehow combine or integrate some of these plans to get results that possibly can meet different targets in various of these areas, I would sure hope that we would apply that to, even as we're applying for the grants. And I think Lindsay knows that already, but, otherwise, we have to get going on this. So thank you.
Any other questions from council? No. City Manager, I noticed the recommendation doesn't include the $70,000 for the climate action plan update. Is that because we're pegging or we're hoping for 100% grant funding?
Yeah, if you actually look at the chart on page 43 of 111, under that line, grant funding available, it says searching for a funding stream. So we'll do a good hard search before we spend more money on that project. Our goal is to find funding.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. And we'll move on to report number 29. and that is the Caribou Regional District Emergency Notification Contribution Agreement. Director Bolton, I'm so glad you're here to report this. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry for being late. There was a little traffic out there. Yeah. So the purpose of this report is to approve the Emergency Notification System Contribution Agreement with the Caribou Regional District. So we've actually had an agreement with them for quite some time to share the emergency notification system. It used to be Everbridge, and we're now switching to Voyant Alert Emergency Notification. You might have noticed there's quite a bit of communication out there letting all our citizens know that the system has changed. So as part of the process to switching to this new system, the contribution from the city to the Caribou Regional Districts was put into a more formal agreement. And as per the city's delegation bylaw, all contracts between the city and another level of government must be approved by council. So the contract is attached, and the recommendation is that council approve staff entering into the emergency notification system contribution agreement with Caribou Regional District as attached to the January 16th council agenda.
Councillor Elliott to move. Second, Councillor McKelvey. And questions, anybody? No questions. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Moving on to report number 28. DP 2023-66 Lawler Drive, Sensitive Ecosystem Development Permit Review. Director Turner, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Vic. The purpose of this report is to review the overall site design for proposed single detached dwelling on Lawler Drive, located within the sensitive ecosystem area. The applicant is proposing to construct a single-story dwelling located in front of Dragon Creek. The dwelling shall be set back 15 meters from the creek and the riparian area. The underside of the lower floor system will be elevated to a minimum of 1.5 meters to above the natural boundary of the creek, meeting floodplain guidelines. Staff have no concerns with this proposed dwelling, and the proponent has met all of the requirements of the DP zone. It is recommended that council approve DP 2023-66 for the construction of a single detached dwelling on Lot 9, District Block 81, Caribou District Plan, PGP 38117, setback 15 meters from the riparian area and high water mark, and at a minimum elevation of 1.5 meters above the natural boundary of the creek, and that a Section 219 covenant is registered on title to ensure the riparian area remains undeveloped and native vegetation is maintained.
Someone to move the recommendation? Councillor Runge and Councillor Rudenberg. Any questions for Director Turner on this one? No questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, we're going on to Admin Report 32 of 2024 Capital Budget. Director Bolton.
Thank you. So this report is to bring forward the capital budget to council for approval. The Financial Sustainability and Audit Committee has reviewed the capital budget in detail a few times and recommends it to council. So this report shows the capital spending in 2024 is estimated at $9.8 million. This doesn't include any carry forwards, so projects that started in 2023 that haven't been completed, they'll be put in later. The 5-year capital plan does show a taxation increase to the capital reinvestment reserve of $100,000 in 2024, 2025, and 2026 to recognize the need to increase the reserve now that building replacement costs are being funded from this reserve. Even with these increases, the fund is depleted within the 5 years and will require more discussion in the future. The city also has just over $2 million from the Growing Communities Fund that has not been allocated. Previous discussions have been to leave this funding in place until the Johnson Bridge update project final budget is known, and that, of course, is the biggest project in the budget when you go and look at the details. At this point, the city's funding for the Johnson Bridge update is coming from the Capital Reinvestment Reserve, the Water and Sewer Capital Reserves. If some of the funding is used for this project, it may help with the deficit currently in the Capital Reinvestment Reserve. At this point, limited projects in the budget are shown as funded by the Canada Community Building Fund, formerly called the gas tax, as the current agreement for funding has ended and the new agreement has not been confirmed at this point, although we expect it soon. So this budget does include an additional $15,000 for a crosswalk update at the arena. This was since being reviewed by FSAC, so this came up in a staff meeting that there's been some concerns of people crossing at the arena, it was felt that this would be a good spot to put one of the flashing crosswalks. So this was added since FSAC reviewed this budget. So I just wanted to note that. So all the details are there, and we can answer any questions. And the recommendation is that council approves the 2024 capital budgets to proceed and directs staff to move forward with building the 5-year financial plan bylaw with the capital projects and funding sources proposed over the 5 years.
Councillor Elliott moves. Councillor Goulet seconds. And I know we've all got lots of burning questions here. Who's first? None. Well, I'll make a comment first, just so you guys can get warmed up. I'm really appreciative that you've added the crosswalk addition there, although it did come after, but that's great. That crosswalk is sketchy from that arena, and that's a much needed improvement. So, Councillor Elliott first.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I agreed on the crosswalk. It's in a weird spot on that corner, so we need all the help we can get. I'm not going to comment on this. We've met numerous times through the budget process with the Finance Committee, so all of my questions have been answered. I'd just like to thank Director Bolton for all her hard work and her staff on this. Thank you.
Nobody else? Councillor Runge.
All righty, let's get going. I guess my question is to Director Bolton. So, are there other incomes that are not showing up on this? Like, do those show up on our next budget, on our operating budget? Like, do we make any kind of money from any of our buildings that we rent out? Are those shown anywhere here, or?
Yeah, so sorry, this is only the funding related to capital. So rental income goes against our operating budget, so that'll all come forward in our operating budget. But this is just capital, so they cover the operating costs, the rental, yeah.
So I just need a little clarification on page 68 of 111 for our Sprout Kitchen, and just for clarification, I think I guess that's I guess it for now, because it's 400,000 and it's kind of like it's a blanket number, and it's
so that particular issue will be discussed at our in-camera after, so you'll hear more detail then.
I guess my point is we're voting on something that's in a budget here. Do we have a chance to look at it later in the future?
Yeah, you'll have a chance to look at it tonight, and if a decision is made elsewhere, we'll adapt this budget.
Thank you.
Can I interrupt you for a sec there, Councillor? City Manager, can we elaborate a little bit further on that?
Thank you. So that pertains to the Sprout Kitchen, and we are looking at a potential purchase of the building where that kitchen is in. It's as per the existing, and it's a public contract that we had put out in previous years when we rented that space. The actual details of that purchase will be discussed in camera, and it's obviously a negotiation potentially, if council wants to do that, between the property owner and the city.
Is that satisfactory, Councillor?
Well, I'm satisfied already before.
Any other questions pertaining to capital budget? Nope. Okay. City Manager.
I would like to make a comment on the bridge lighting, just because that's come up a couple of times over the last little while. And the bridge lighting I'm talking about is the footbridge. So you'll note that project is the project to replace the decorative lighting on the footbridge is not in our current capital. And we're still trying to determine the appropriate way to secure that. It's very expensive, and to date has been very prone to damage from people trying to steal copper or steal fixtures or steal aluminum and other types of damages as well. So we're trying to figure out how we fix that. There is a dollar amount in there of bridge security lighting and videos for $70,000. And the point of that is we still need to have a level of light on the bridge so it's safe to use. So this is about the public safety aspect. But unfortunately, for 2024, we don't see proceeding yet because we don't know the answer on the decorative lighting.
Thank you, City Manager. Any other questions? Okay. I will call the question. All those in favor of the motion on the floor? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you, Councillor. Take it easy. We just can't lose another. Okay, moving on to admin report. I'll just note Councillor Elliott's left. He was in a motor vehicle accident, fender bender, and he's not feeling 100%, so he's excused himself. We're moving on to admin report 32. Oh, we've done that one. Whoops, sorry. 27. Bylaw 1954, City of Quesnel Zoning Amendment, Bylaw 1954, 2024, DP 2023-64, 118 Juniper, rezone to allow vape retail and request to waive public hearing, first and second readings, waive public hearing requirement, and post notice. Director Turner to report.
Thank you. Chair Vic, again, this report we did bring, I'll remind council, did come before council once before just to discuss the new regulations regarding vape retail and how we wanted to proceed with developments. As you were made aware, Northern Health, the province has changed some rules with regards to vape retail, and retailers are now required to have separate facilities for selling certain products. And we've had a couple of facilities now that are looking at doing that process. There was a lot of confusion at the beginning and for the retailers as well as the city, and we work together now and are ready to proceed. As discussed, council, the council did request us to create a new vape store use and consider each with a spot zone. That's because these are occurring on the same site as typically an existing store, so there's a little bit more need to evaluate. The proponent has now provided everything, and we're ready to proceed on first reading of their request for a vape retail use on their site. So this bylaw creates the vape retail use in our zoning bylaw, as well as provides first reading to allow this proponent to move forward. Just to give you a bit of a summary there, the recommendation is that council provides first and second readings to the City of Quesnel Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 1954 to permit the use of vapor retail store on Lot B, District Lot 3948, Caribou District, Plan 18315, except Plan 3571, and that council waive the requirement to hold a public hearing as the spot zone is consistent with the official community plan, and that a notice respecting the proposed bylaw is posted in accordance to Section 468 of the Local Government Act.
Recommendation. Councillor Rudenberg makes that motion. Seconder. Councillor Runge. Questions? Well, thanks for the hard work on this. I know this was a bit murky in the beginning. Thanks to also PABCOM for putting in the effort. I think subsequent applications will be a bit more straightforward. So thank you for that. I think the proponents are in the room as well, perhaps? No? So anyway, no further questions on this one? All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to report number 31, Bylaw 1957 and 58, City of Quesnel, OCP Plan Amendment Bylaw 1957 for 2024, and Zoning Amendment Bylaw 1958, 2024, RZ 2023-43, 668 Doherty Drive, first reading. Director Turner. Been a busy night, Director Turner.
Thank you, Chair Vic. This report is, again, another return. This is a project that was proposed once before. There is a couple of amendments that I'll point out here, though. This is for the redevelopment of a commercial space at 668 Doherty Drive into a full residential space. The proponent is proposing to convert the commercial building into a 17-unit residential apartment. We've seen this application before. Unfortunately, it failed to meet some timelines and it had to be repealed. The proponent did take the opportunity to as well readjust some of their building plans and also add a unit. They've also listened to council's requests and have added additional bike storage. You'll see there that the plan is to have 16 units of bike storage in this facility. I'm not going to go into great detail, as I know council has read the report, but that's really the highlights of the report at this stage. It does have to go, as the process outlined indicates, it will go to public hearing, and we're proposing again a February 20th date for that public hearing. I'll read the recommendation. The council provides, just give me 2 seconds here. That council provides first reading of the proposed official plan amendment bylaw number 1957 and zoning bylaw number 1958 to allow the use of a residential apartment in a commercial area on Lot F, District Lot 704, Caribou District Plan 508, and that council has considered consultation as per Section 475 of the Local Government Act, and that staff does not recommend additional consultation as the city received no correspondence against the previous application. And I would like to just make one amendment here because I do see that the public hearing was not set, and I know you're over there smiling, Mr. Runge, but I got it first. So the public hearing, I would like to add, and that the public hearing be set for February 20th at 6:30 in council chambers at City Hall.
Thanks, Director Turner. Question?
I just wanted to be clear. I know you have to read the recommendation in, and when you read the district plan number, you just said 508. And I'm sure if you have to read the 5008, just for.
We'll note that. Thank you, Councillor.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you for the clarification of the public hearing.
Oh, thank you. And there's a clarification because I keep forgetting that we're at 6. The public hearing would be at 5:30 as the Deputy Clerk is indicating to me there.
Good catch. Good catch. Wouldn't want to be here an hour past, Councillor Runge, question.
Just possibly a little clarification. So I'm not sure if we meant no correspondence versus no correspondence. I'm not sure if that's a right, proper spelling for that. And then I've got another question with regards to the proposed densities. Does that fall into this? Because on page 96 of 111, under Part 1, we're moving it up to 17 units or 18 units? Because everywhere it's 17 units, just in that paragraph it's 18.
Sorry, I'm sorry, just for clarification, it said 17 units.
Yeah, it said 17 throughout the report. Only in that one sentence under it had the one bullet, provide a clause in the C2 zone that allows for the apartment use such as, and we changed the number to 18 there, and I believe it's supposed to be 17 with regards to everything else that was spoken to in here. I just think it might have been a typo.
Sorry, I'm not seeing which page that sounds right. But I believe it's true. It would be a typo. I just want to confirm with the proponents that are in the House that it's 17 or 18 units. I'm sorry, the previous planner was working quite closely with the proponent at that time, and it did move up from 17 to 18? Okay, sorry, that is a correction. It did move up to 18 units.
So I guess then I just need some clarification of where it moved up other than in that one sentence, because everywhere else it's 17.
Everywhere else it is 17. I think it's probably the difference because just in the last rendition they moved it up to the 18.
So it is 18.
It has been moved up to 18
Okay.
units.
Question, Councillor.
Then once again, we have some clarification because this whole thing was written with 12 single units and I believe 12 and 5 doubles. I just have to find the page now. And now all of a sudden we're switching things around again. I just, yeah. And I don't want to be a stickler here too much on this, but so on all the things, the floor plan's attached with 17 units, unless the 18th unit is the scooter unit for the bikes. I'm just not, currently all of these things talk about 15.
I note that the schematics are probably from when we had this come to council before, because I don't see where the bike storage, actually, I think, is that it on?
The bike storage should be in the new schematics.
Sorry, it's not referenced in one of the other documents here, but, so I guess the question I had here is, it's 18 units. So anywhere it references the number 17, we need to assume it's 18, is that correct?
Thank you, yes.
And then all these other numbers change, so do we have, where else does this change? It changes in the schematics too.
Sorry, what changes in the schematics?
Okay, are there any other questions why Councillor Runge is?
Well, I'm not the person to look at. Sorry, I'm really not the person to look at these designs here.
So let's to clarify, let's do the resolution as 18, because it could obviously be up to 18, right?
And actually, we still need to get this on the floor, so I need so Councillor Rudenberg is going to make the motion, understanding that it's for 18 units. Seconder? Okay. Councillor McKelvey. Sorry, Councillor, almost forgot your name for like a second. All right, so it's on the floor. We've worked out the typo regarding the amount of units. Are there any other questions pertaining to this? No? Councillor Runge, one more question?
Yeah, so it's not speaking against the building per se, but are we looking at the other referrals with regards to snow storage missing, and or parking, lack of the parking on the street, the concern from Bylaw and the concern from our building department? Has that been mitigated? Has that been taken care of? I guess that question is to you, Director Turner.
Correct. The snow storage, of course, I mean, the building's footprint isn't changing, so the snow storage won't change. So that's kind of not a concern at this point. The applicants are working very closely with the building inspector. So those are comments that he is directly working with the applicant on. Yeah. And all comments are provided to. Yeah, so all the different recommendations or sort of stuff that comes out of the referrals is directly worked with the proponent always, yeah.
And regarding the bylaw comment for lack of parking, obviously it's a concern, but it's a concern that's been raised for many developments that have been approved, and I would suggest that the proponent also work closely with Bylaw in the event of challenges with snow removal. Arrangements have been made with other landlord managers to expedite the removal of vehicles should there be an issue. So I would highly suggest that sort of methodology prevail with this development as well. Are there any other questions? I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. We'll move on. Okay, we're going to move on to council information package, which there was no items brought forward. Regarding correspondence, there was some between the Quesnel-Shirawi Twinning Society delegation that is visiting in March 2024. Mayor Paul wanted to discuss a financial component to this delegation visiting. In his stead, I'll suggest that we allocate $2,000 from council initiatives. Actually, scratch that. $2,000 from I guess a separate account. In the event that these exchanges become more regular, it's good to have, I would believe, a separate account to gauge the financial commitment that the city makes from time to time to this. So, thank you for doing all this. Thank you. So that was Councillor Paul's suggestion. The $2,000, what that would primarily fund would be a luncheon/meal with the delegation that's visiting, and a small gift, which is customary for such delegations that are visiting from Japan. So I will be looking for a motion from council to support that.
I'll make that.
So Councillor McKelvey will put that motion, and then Councillor Goulet. And just, I guess you need that more professional, that motion there? No, is that fine? Okay. $2,000 to be itemized separately in our operations budget for Shirawi delegation use. Are there any questions on that? And we do look forward to that meeting that's happening in March. We spoke to city representatives last week regarding their visit, and they're very excited, and we're very much looking forward to meeting those visitors. Some of them are retired employees from the city of Shirawi, so they're going to be quite excited to see how things have changed. Questions? Go ahead, Councillor McKelvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When was the last time we had visitors from Shirawi? Do we know?
I don't know. I would look to council for...
It's been a while, hasn't it? Yep.
At least 5 years ago. Is that fair to say? Yeah. So, any other questions? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And I think... not quite. Bylaws, all of which were addressed under staff reports, so no further deliberation required. There is no new business. Changes to upcoming meeting schedule. This is actually really important. On February 20th, 2024, there's the public hearing, Bylaw 1956, City of Quesnel, zoning amendment, Bylaw 1956, 2024. That's for Carson. But on February 27th, there's a special open council meeting on the budget, where council will meet just to discuss the budget. And it is obviously an open meeting, and we're welcoming the public to also come and ask questions about the budget. So it's been a little while since we've done something like this, so I hope the word gets out. And there is no changes to committee appointments, and there's no more. Are there any announcements? Councillor Rudenberg has an announcement.
I do. Well, it's actually, this has been a long time coming. So we had the opportunity to attend over by the hospital. Every couple of years, we host First Nations from across the Caribou to recognize the hanging of the war chiefs. And this year they had quite a turnout. It was a full yard, let's just say. People traveled from all over the place, especially from down the Williams Lake area. And one of the things that they did was they actually presented artwork to all of their guests, including the city of Quesnel. So this was just, it was done through a contest, and this is one of the First Nations artists, and I don't know if you can see it very well. And what it says here, we meant war, not murder. And so it's a bit of a discussion around, what happens during war and whatever, and what happened when the chiefs came up here and they were hanged for being at war, which is not something that white people should have been involved in. Anyway, so these are the 7 horses and the 7 chiefs, and it's quite a moving photo, or painting, sorry. And very meaningful. So I'm hoping that we find a spot in City Hall to hang this. City Manager, did I miss anything important in that? I'm just trying to remember. It's been a while since this happened, so I'd hate to miss something.
No, I think you covered most of it off very well. It's an interesting event because it does bring up the Silcotin National Government, which represent where these chiefs came from, the Silcotin National Government. And one of the projects that the city has is a commemorative project on that site. And the city is still waiting to hear from Northern Health. We're anticipating that the property on that site, which is currently owned by Northern Health, is going to be transferred to the city for the purposes of some type of a memorial to be built there, not necessarily by the city, perhaps by the Silcotin themselves, or a partnership there. But it's one of the ways we want to try to memorialize that site moving forward. So that'll be an interesting development to watch over the next few years, how that happens.
I think the other piece I'd like to add is the fact that even though the Silcotin came up to this community, all of our neighboring First Nations were there and spoke and welcomed everyone to the territory. So I always, we always hear about how things aren't necessarily good between certain First Nations, but this opportunity, everybody was there, all the chiefs were there, and it was just an opportunity to reflect, and they had a meal served, and it's an all-day event there. So I'm always full of gratitude when I get invited to such events. So like I said, I hope we have an opportunity to hang this somewhere in City Hall that's prominent. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Rudenberg. Are there any other announcements tonight? Okay, seeing none. Any gallery questions tonight? No? You sure? Later? Okay. And now I'd like to adjourn, so we need someone to make a motion to do that. Councillor Goulet, Councillor McKelvey, and
Good luck getting home.
all those in favor? Opposed? Carried.